All right, welcome back. Now let's talk about another situation that comes up that when we find a horizontal asymptote, one of the things we want to know is where does the graph of the function cross the horizontal asymptote, if it does, right? Now, as we know from our discussion of vertical asymptotes or the reading, okay, so now I didn't say this in the previous example, but I'm going to say it now. When it comes to vertical asymptotes, the graph of the function will never cross a vertical asymptote. Okay, so if you're reading the textbook for the class, it will also say it in there. Okay, so that's the case for vertical asymptotes, but that is not necessarily true for horizontal asymptotes, right? So the graph could cross somewhere, could cross the horizontal asymptote somewhere, okay? How do we find where, if it does cross, how do we find where it crosses? Okay, and that's where we're going to use an example to demonstrate, okay? So we take this from a previous example, this was h of x, and we saw that in this case, we saw that the horizontal asymptote occurs at y equals 4. And so now what we want to do is we want to say, okay, well, where does the graph of this function cross the horizontal asymptote? Y equals 4. Now, we know that as x goes off to positive or negative infinity, that it's approaching the line y equals 4. But maybe it crosses somewhere in between those two, right? So, and you might also already know where I'm going with this, but the way we would see if it crosses is just treat these as two lines, right? We're going to find where does this graph and the graph of this line cross. That would be where they're equal to each other. So all I'm going to do is set this equal to 4 and solve. Ooh, sorry. Woo. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 8x squared plus 9x minus 5 all over 2x squared plus 1, and I'm going to set it equal to 4. And I'm going to solve this, and it's real easy. If I solve this and I find the values of x that make this true, then guess what? Those are the points where it crosses the horizontal asymptote. All right, so let's solve this. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2x squared plus 1. Okay, so if I do that, I get 8x squared plus 9x minus 5 is equal to 8x squared plus 4. Okay, now notice that the 8x squares are going to cancel out. And then if I subtract 4 from both sides, I get what? I get 9x minus 9 is equal to 0. And then if I factor out the 9, I get minus 1. And of course, if I divide both sides by 9, I just get the same thing. And I get x is equal to 1. So x equal to 1 solves this. So guess what? That means it crosses the horizontal asymptote at 1, 4, and I'm done. And so that's where it crosses the horizontal asymptote.